Hi, and welcome to the Passionistas Project podcast. We're Amy and Nancy Harrington, and today we're talking to one of our personal heroes, Susan Feniger. Most likely you know Susan from her Food Network TV show, Too Hot Tamales, which she did with her partner, Mary Sue Milliken. You've also seen her on Tamales World Tour, Top Chef Masters, and as a judge on countless cooking shows. TV might have made her famous, but her cooking made her worthy of the fame. She is currently co-owner of Border Grill and Blue Window in LA and Vegas. But above all that, she is a strong, empowered woman who supports numerous causes near and dear to her heart, including the Los Angeles LGBT Center, whose upcoming Simply Divine event will take place at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery on March 24th. So please welcome to the show, Susan Feniger.
So we always like to start by asking people, we're the pop culture passionistas because we're passionate about pop culture. But what are you most passionate about?
One of the things that I've always been inspired by is the street culture, sort of the street pop culture. For example, street fashion, street music, street food. I think for me, what happens on the street is often where we eventually see becoming, the norm. So I like that. I like getting inspiration from the street for all sort of the arts, and that I think there's just amazing material that comes from the street. So maybe that. I mean, I'm certainly passionate about, giving back and philanthropy and teaching and obviously food and, I love to play tennis, and I was a total jock as a kid, although that stopped for about 30 years. But
Was there a precise moment when you knew you wanted to be a chef?
I worked in a restaurant in high school in Toledo, Ohio, called Smith's Cafeteria, and I made French dip sandwiches then. And I have to say, I loved that, moment in time. I loved working there. I was, I think, a junior in high school, and I really was drawn to the culture of a restaurant. And then all through college, I worked in restaurants, in the school cafeteria, in the dish room, and it was definitely something that clicked for me. And I was studying economics and business, and in my junior year, I convinced my econ professor to let me do my last year of college as an independent study at the CIA. And that, the guy that was the cook, his name is Perry. I don't remember his last name. I need to try to locate him. But he was an Army cook, and he really, at some point, I think probably in my sophomore year, sort of said to me, why aren't you becoming a chef? Why are you studying economics and business? And it definitely raised that question for me. And by the end of my junior year, I was into CIA and went.
At the time, though, it feels like it was a really male-dominated industry. So when you were growing up and when you were starting to make that choice, was it something that a girl was doing?
I'm probably the worst one to ask that. I didn't think about it. I really didn't think about it. It was, I had worked in kitchens, probably more, male-dominated, although the woman whose name was Maggie, who was the pot washer, was about this skinny and had tattoos all over and smoked a cigarette while she was doing these big, huge pots that were bigger than her. So, but I didn't really think about it. I was started at the CIA in Poughkeepsie, New York, and at that point, there were, I think, 2 women in my class of maybe 80, and there just weren't very many women in the industry. I was sort of a tomboy, so growing up, I was around boys and played, football and basketball and ice skate and hockey with the boys. So I was pretty comfortable working with boys, and still are,
What was your path to becoming a chef?
I was very driven. I was from the Midwest, a nice Jewish family. When I was in high school, I thought I was a libertarian, read all the Ayn Rand books. So I was a really hard worker, very driven. I was in school almost like the 6 hours in the morning, and then I drove an hour to Brewster, New York, and worked a full 8-hour shift then when I was working at this restaurant called Harold's. And then I did that for about a year while I was in school. And then the next year I worked at a fish market called Gadaletto's Fish Market and did the same thing. school in the morning, worked at the fish market for like 6 hours filleting fish, came home full of fish scales, stripped my clothes off on the porch and went in. So that sort of got me in that mode of work, of what restaurant business is long days, long hours, and I loved it. And I think even when I was in college, was looking for that. I was looking for that thing that I wouldn't be like sort of looking at my clock, my watch to see what time, is it almost done? And I really found that, and still find it with the kitchen. I still can put in a 14-hour, 15-hour day and just doesn't affect me. Doesn't really bother. It's one of the problems for me is that it's very easy for me to get consumed in it.
Doesn't feel like work.
No, and then it really doesn't. And then, I mean, unless I'm in meetings all day, and then I really need a cocktail when I get home. My least favorite part of the job, but that and reviews. So I worked in restaurants the whole time while I was going to school, and I even had made a decision that I was going to try to see. I made this commitment. I always make these stupid commitments. Like when I was in college, I did for about 3 months, I wanted to see if I could survive on 3 hours of sleep at night. I like to go. So I like to get up early in the morning and I like to go to bed late at night. So
how many hours do you get now?
I get probably a good 5 or 6, But I can get 4 and wake up and I'm like awake. I mean, it can catch up to me, but I'm old now. So after that, then I just was on a path. I had sort of decided I wasn't going to read any more fiction or nonfiction. I was going to read cookbooks. I was going to be very focused. And, so I went from upstate New York, got a job in a great restaurant in Kansas City, working for an amazing Swiss man. And from Kansas City, then I went and got a job at a great restaurant in Chicago called Le Perroquet, which is where I met Mary Sue. We were the only 2 women working in that kitchen. And then from there, I came out to LA and got a job at Ma Maison. Wolfgang Puck was the chef of Ma Maison. At that time, I don't know, maybe there was 1 woman in the kitchen, I don't remember, but Barbara Lazaroff was around a lot, so she was a powerful woman around, his then not wife yet, but became. And from there, I went to the south of France, got a job in a 3-star restaurant in the south of France called L'Oasis. There was 1 woman up in pastries. I was the only woman with like 20, 17 or 18-year-old boys. That was interesting, but I whipped them into shape pretty quick.
Someone had to.
And then after that, came back and came back on a Friday, back to work at Ma Maison on a Monday, after over a year being gone, and then started working Ma Maison in the day, and then some people that I had met before who owned LAI Works were opening up a little cafe, and I was helping them at night do that, and eventually I left Ma Maison and became a partner at City Cafe, and that was 1981.
So you had met Mary Sue. You guys started working together in your own place. And at what point did that become an opportunity to become a television personality?
I met Mary Sue at Le Perroquet. Then I moved out to LA. We ended up in France at almost the exact same. I was in the South. She was in Paris at almost the exact same time. We decided one night over a couple bottles of wine. After I had finished working in the South, the season was over. I went to Paris. We decided over a couple of bottles of wine to open up a business together. We had no money, but we did. So then I came back to LA. She went back to Chicago. And then she came out after I became when a partner at City Cafe. She came out. So in 1982, she probably came out or so, I think. And then, I don't know. We opened a bigger restaurant, City, in 84. We turned the little City Cafe into Border Grill. And I can't remember when the TV show started, but we were doing some TV, like with Julia Child, doing KCET, some of that stuff. And then Food Network approached us to do a show. So we were already 10, 12 years running our own business. We had Little Border Grill, which City Cafe became Border Grill. We had City Restaurant, and we opened Border Grill in Santa Monica in 90. So it was after that we started Good Food, which was a radio show with KCRW. We pitched them on that. And then Food Network approached us and we started to do Two Hot Tamales.
Was that something you were looking to do?
Food Network had just sort of started. So, I mean, there was obviously Julia and all those shows on public TV, but Food Network was just starting. So it was the very beginning of that happening. So, no, we both loved to teach. We taught all the time. So it seemed like a great idea. And we were both pretty comfortable in front of the camera. But I don't think either one of us thought, oh, this is a career path. It was just, we both love to teach. You teach all the time in restaurants. So when they approached us, well, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So we did that. We filmed, I don't remember how many it says.
Almost 400.
Almost 400 shows, yeah, between the two. We shot 6 shows a day, 5 days a week in New York. They just turned the camera on and we went.
Did you like doing it?
Yeah, it was fun. We felt like we were on vacation because we'd start at 6 in the morning, we'd be done at 6 at night, and we went out every night in New York. So it was fun. We'd be there 6-7 days and we'd have our nights off. So it was great.
So now what's the focus of your career right now, your professional life?
Well, right now I'm particularly busy, but we both do a lot of things separate in terms of sort of nonprofit things. I'm on the board of the Los Angeles LGBT Center. I've been on the board, and that 13 years now. I've been on the board of the Scleroderma Research Foundation for 30 years now. My college roommate was diagnosed with scleroderma and started this foundation many years ago. So we do big fundraisers called Cool Comedy Hot Cuisine twice a year for that, to raise money for scleroderma. And Bob Saget's on the board with me. Dana Delaney's on the board. Bob did the event one year as a comedian, and 2 years later, his sister was diagnosed with scleroderma. So we did our 37th event, I think, this year. So, and we've raised over $48 million for scleroderma research. So that's been great. And as I think you said, I'm on the board of Los Angeles LGBT Center, which I love. I'm in the middle right now of working on some of our capital campaign to try to see if we can develop a teaching program for youth that are homeless and have kicked out of their homes, a teaching program to give them skills to be in the kitchen or in the restaurant business to help feed seniors, youth, bring those two together. So we'll see if we can make that happen. So
the goal of that is to build a professional kitchen.
It is. May not happen, but we're working on it. We're working on that with the new capital campaign that's happening, which is very exciting. The center is an amazing board to be on. Absolutely. The work that gets done at the center, Lori Jean, who's the executive director, blows you away. She's inspirational, makes our work seem pretty small in the big picture of stuff in the for-profit world. Plus we have, right now we're opening another little Border Grill type place in Vegas. It's called Barbecue Mexicana. That's going to be opening at Mandalay Bay across from our existing Border Grill. That should happen in the next 4 months or so. And then we're also not there, but close to signing on a lease for a Border Grill in Santa Monica, another one, in the next 6 months or so. So I feel like I have my hands full, for sure.
A lot of spinning plates.
Yeah, I'm on the board of the Los Angeles Convention and Tourism Board, which is exciting because you get to know what's going on in the city, and there's great stuff going on, and that's an interesting board, very different than the other boards I'm on.
Do you have a typical day, or is every day just completely different for you?
Yeah, every day is different. I'm on the dinner committee for One Drop in Las Vegas, which is the Cirque du Soleil foundation that raises money for trying to provide clean water to people all around the world. So one night a year, they close down all the Cirque shows and do one big event, one Cirque event, and then we do a big, party afterwards with food and entertainment. So for example, I was there Friday at our restaurant in Vegas, flew home Saturday morning, went to our Border Grill at LAX in the Bradley terminal, met with the new GM there, tasted all the food, went over to Blue Window in Terminal 3, tasted the food there, then headed out to Pasadena to our Border Grill taqueria out at the Huntington Gardens, and then came down here, and yeah, and then so it varies. Like today, say today I have this, and then I have I think a Simply Divine meeting. I don't know if that's today or tomorrow. Simply Divine meeting. Then I'm meeting with someone later on today about the new project we're trying to develop in the kitchen, this kitchen project, and learn a little bit more about what I've said I would be willing to take on. So, and then lunch service, and then, it's sort of, every day, that's one of the great things about it. Every day is very different.
Do you spend much time in the kitchen?
I do. My office, when we moved from our other offices in Santa Monica, we emptied up a storeroom for me in the back, a little tiny one, in the back by the deep fryer. So I'm back there so that I can sort of walk out into the restaurant all the time and hear if it's busy. But I'm in the restaurants quite a bit. It was one of those things 35 years ago, I had said to Mary, she was like, I want to be in the restaurant during service. I don't want to be in meetings, in the office, but that's almost impossible to sometimes do, but I try to do that. So I am in the kitchen. I try to stay connected to our teams.
What is your team like? What's the atmosphere that you like to create in your restaurants?
I think the atmosphere we try to create is very respectful from the top down, that it's, serious about quality, but it's fun and playful, and the people can learn and have an opportunity to grow. Front and back, 99.9% of the time, get along really well. That's always been our thing, is that we don't have, argue, we don't have chefs that scream. I feel like people are respectful and care about each other.
You're listening to the Passionistas Project podcast with our guest, chef, restaurateur, cookbook author, and TV personality Susan Feniger. Visit the Border Grill and Blue Window websites to find out more about the restaurant's locations, and go to the Los Angeles LGBT Center website to make a donation. Now here's more of our interview with Susan.
Obviously, you don't have a lot of problem getting yourself motivated, or you wouldn't be able to do all these things, but do you ever wake up someday and go, I can't do this, and how do you get past that lack of motivation or creative block or something?
Yeah. There are those times where I think, like, God, I wish I just could figure out how to find a few hours to go play golf, or, to say I'm going to leave in the middle of the day and do it and then come back, which I can never do, or that I'm going to, leave early and go do that. So there's that, but, there's not that often, unless it's a really rainy, cold day. And then I think, like, well, I want to stay home and not go. And also my partner, actually my wife, although both of us have a hard time saying that, but 22 years, she's a writer, director, so she works from home. So sometimes it's tempting, although she doesn't like it when I'm home, because then it's like, I'm like walking in the kitchen, like, what are you doing now? Or what do even if I'm not feeling that up or good, I feel like once I sort of end up here or at one of the restaurants, I can sort of shift pretty quickly. And it just feels like it just happens because I get in my day and it happens. I have to say, when I have a day of all meetings, I do go home pretty like, ugh, thank God I go see our dogs and have a drink. And, it's just not my favorite thing, is to just have a day of like 8 hours of meeting. It just, drives me crazy.
Is there something that you have to do every day, though, to kind of make yourself feel like, all right, that's the most important part of my daily routine?
No, I'm not that organized. I like to not have my emails go up to like 400. Then I feel this pressure to spend 5 hours to try to get it down to 150 or something. But that always feels like pressure, which is the problem with emails.
Do you think you have a secret to a rewarding life, or like a mantra that you live by?
No, I don't. I don't. I think, I do think that it's important to be passionate about what you do. So, the problem for me, and I think maybe for many people with being so passionate about your work, is it's hard to find a balance in your personal life and work. So that, I think, obviously, who wants to be working so hard or working a big part of your life and not be passionate about it? I mean, I feel bad for people that I feel like aren't. I don't, that seems like even if you just work an 8-hour day, I don't know, if you're not passionate about it, that feels like not that fun. It's a 30 hours in a day. But I do think that there's, the struggle. That's always been the struggle for me, is it's hard for me to find a balance. Hard for me to make time to see friends, or make time, or for Liz and I to have, a life other than, meet for dinner at 10 o'clock at night, or get up, we take the dogs to the park every single morning, for the last 3 years with the puppies. It's like, oh my God, aren't we like onto a new phase with them? But, I think that, if anything, is the negative. The negativity of passion is that, it's hard to find the balance.
Besides finding the balance, is there like a moment in your career that's presented the biggest challenge for you? And how did you overcome that moment?
Well, luckily, I have a horrible memory. So it's easy when we have a failure to just like think, okay, and move on. And, but we've closed restaurants and had failures for sure. But I don't find that those set me back in a big way. Emotionally, they don't. I mean, at the moment they do, but I feel like I'm able to sort of move past that and move on. I mean, I think I don't know who it was that said it, but Liz told me about that saying of where you fall fast forward. So, I mean, I feel like, I'm able to sort of move on and not have it scare me and not have it stop me from doing new stuff. But I don't know, part of it is having a supportive partner. If I had, if Liz was someone that was really on me about how much am I working and when am I going to be home, I think it would make it way more challenging. But she's very supportive, and I think she was a singer-songwriter for many years, so she has late hours also. So we're able to be very flexible in that. But I don't, I haven't had, maybe there was at one point in my career, this way like maybe 30 years ago, and I was with someone who was a little bit more that way. And I think it caused issues for me emotionally about work and dividing it, and was this the right career, for about a minute. I think she was the wrong person.
So have you had like personal influential women in your life that were role models to you? Can you tell us about any of those?
It's interesting. I probably have more men, but certainly Julia, in terms of food world, I loved her. She was amazing. She was smart and generous and knowledgeable and humble and, funny. And that was one of the most fun times we ever had filming, is when we did a show with her where we filmed for like 2 days straight. And she was just crazy. And we would, film all day from like 5 in the morning until like 5 at night. And then we'd go change and I'll go out to dinner. And she was great. I loved her. So and I loved her shows, that they were, irreverent. They were, so I think she probably was someone, because she took food seriously, but she didn't take, and she took the things she was passionate about seriously, but she was also very playful and fun. So I think that, there's certainly people from the political world that I think obviously, like everybody, well, not everybody, but I think, Michelle Obama was pretty amazing. I think Hillary was pretty amazing. But, and Nelson Mandela has always been someone I've just like thought, oh my God, what an amazing person. Obama, when Clinton won, I was like, oh my God, Martin Luther King. There's people that I feel are, for me, inspirational.
And what about your family growing up? Was food a big thing in your family when you were a kid, and do you think that influenced you?
Yeah, my mom was a fantastic cook, really fabulous cook. My sister, though, was a terrible cook, but my mom was an amazing cook, really great. She could taste things, she seasoned well, she got it. She was really good. So, and she wasn't, she did a lot of parties, and she would always cook and put things in the freezer, and there always would be people that would, on a Sunday, that people would stop by, and then all of a sudden we'd have like 15 people around the house and hanging out, and she'd pull things out of the freezer. So she was really, she had great taste buds. And so I think, she inspired me a lot in terms of cooking. She was really good. And she would do events sometimes with us. My mom and my dad would meet us in Miami to do an event. And very soon my dad would be grilling and drinking, and my mom and I would be working our butts off. So she was good. So I think my grandmother was really good. My aunt, my grandmother and my aunt lived my Aunt Faye and my grandmother was Sylvia. They lived right next door to each other in apartments that were matching buildings. And I would go spend a Saturday night at my grandmother's, and then go over to my Aunt Faye's for chicken liver and eggs and onions in the morning. And then I'd come back, and my grandmother would be making, either crêpe or, potato pancakes or something. So they were both really good cooks too. I have this great little recipe box that's, one of those file card boxes that have some of my handwritten recipes from Culinary Institute, my mom's recipes that are in there, and my grandmother's handwritten recipes that are in there.
So love that.
It's
we
cool.
have that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool.
We have a cookbook that our mom edited from our Catholic school growing up. That is all family it's other people's families too, but there are all these Harrington family recipes peppered throughout, and it's so cool to open that up once a year.
We also have her copy of it that has her handwritten recipes for a few family recipes that have been handed down. It's really great.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Do you have any advice for women who want to be professional chefs?
I don't know that it's any different than for men, but I think, for anyone that's going into this career, I believe you have to be passionate about food. You have to be okay with long hours and hard work, getting burnt, getting cut, scars on your arms, working. It's very much a team thing. So you have to be, I was into sports and I was a cheerleader. You have to sort of have all those things about you, I think, to be to sort of immerse yourself in it. And I think it really has to be that you love what you're doing. It can't be that you think you're gonna go in and make a lot of money, or that you're gonna be famous on TV, but that you're willing, and you've got to be flexible. I think your personality has to be that you can make change and adjustments really quickly, because things happen all the time. All of a sudden someone doesn't show up for work, someone cuts themselves, the dishwasher doesn't show up, so you have to jump in and help do dishwashing. You need to stay an extra double shift. So I think you really have to have the passion, and I think if you don't, and for young women going into, the profession, I think it's just and young men, it's all about finding this work, the creative process being fun, the hard work being fun, the challenges of it. It has to sort of be all of those things. Because if you just think you're just going to be a great chef, that alone, creating food, is only one part of the job.
If you could be eating anything, anywhere in the world right now, what would you want to be eating?
Anything, anywhere in the world. I would probably be eating street food in India.
Why?
I love the Indian culture. I love street food everywhere, Vietnam, China, everywhere. But India is probably some place where, I've been there 5 or 6 times. I did my first trip to India in 81. I think it changed my career. It changed projection of how I saw food. It was, strong, because I'd been trained in just the French kitchen. So it was about being in India, I understood, the power of strong flavors and spices and chilies. And I saw the value of being able to do something simple with all these spices and ingredients and how it could shift that. So it really, I think, changed my understanding of food in a way that the French kitchen didn't. And it sort of shifted what I was drawn to. So the Mexican kitchen, street food. And I love the culture there, everything about the culture. I mean, I've been wearing Bengal-like things ever since then.
If you could be one pop culture icon and walk in their shoes for one day, who would you pick and why?
Yeah, well, I was going to say Nelson Mandela.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Why?
Because I think the fight for equality, the fight for freedom, and, getting rid of the prejudices out there in the world is something that I find really important. And I don't, for some reason, when I was younger, when he got out of prison, I just felt like that was just an amazing thing. And then to become president, it was like, how could that be? That must be such an unreal experience for him. And for us to see, and for young kids to see, you can fight for what's right and you can succeed.
Well, and that's what we're hoping that young people take away from interviews like this, is to see someone like you who's just made such an amazing life for themselves because they followed their passions. So we cannot thank you enough for sitting down with us today and having this conversation.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thanks so much, you guys.
Our pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to the Passionistas Project podcast and our interview with Susan Feniger from Border Grill and Blue Window. Check out their websites to find out more about the restaurants. And if you're in LA, go to the Los Angeles LGBT Center website to get tickets for the Simply Divine food and wine event being held at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery on March 24th. And don't forget to subscribe to the Passionistas Project podcast so you can catch all of our upcoming inspiring guests.